Okay, looks like it's about time to get started. And we're going to be simplifying expressions today. So, what we're going to start off with is our simplest form of simplifying an expression. And to do this, we need to first talk about things like similar terms. Similar or like terms have the same variable part. So, when I talk about expressions, I've got something like this, and I can add together some like terms by simply adding together the coefficients. So if I've got something like 3x plus 4x, here my variables are x. These numbers in front, this 3 and that 4, are called coefficients. And what we're doing when we simplify this is we're just going to add together. I'm going to add the coefficients of my like terms. So 3x plus 4x is going to be 7x. Well, that's pretty easy for what we have so far. But what happens if I've got... What happens if, these are just positive. What happens if I've got something a little different? Like, say I've got 7a, and I take away 10a. Well, again, I'm just going to combine my coefficients. Only in this case, this is going to be 7a, or 7 minus 10. So this is going to end up being, 7 minus 10 is going to be negative 3. And then my variable always stays the same. So here, if we're thinking about this, we're going to note that, 7 minus 10 is equal to negative 3. So we're just adding together the coefficients of our like terms. Okay. Now, we can add some other flourishes onto this if we want, because here it's very clear that I've got, these are like terms, x and x. I've only got a single variable here. I can and I'm only doing 2 at a time. I could just as easily work with more than 2 variables. Or actually, more than 2 terms, I should say. More than 2 terms. I could do something like, say I've got 18y, then minus 10y, and then plus a 4y. With this, I'd have to ask myself, well, I've only got one variable, 18. I've got y each time. And in a lot of ways, what we're doing is we're saying, oh, how many y's do I have total? I've got 18 to start with, I'm going back 10, and then I'm adding 4 more. So 18 minus 10 is going to be 8. 8 plus 4 is going to be 12 y. Or actually, sorry, 18 minus 10, yes, 8 plus 4 is 12. 12y. I had miswritten this in my notes over here. Alrighty. Now, like I said, we can add in some other pieces here where I've got more than just my variable terms. Now I'm going to start taking a look at some examples where I have where I've got things that have both our variable terms. Say we've got like 3x, and then I'll do like a plus 5. And then I'll do plus 2x and minus 3. Now, with something like this, I've got my variable terms here, and looking at this example, I've got 3x plus 2x. I can technically rearrange my terms, or I can basically just say, well, what are my variables? What variables do I have here? I've got 3x and I've got 2x. And if I were to add those things together, I would end up with 5x. Now you might see some examples where they go through this elaborate process of rewriting this. And if you want to, you're welcome to do so. I think this is easier as an internal process, but if it helps, you can think about rearranging these terms. Just remember that whatever sign is in front of any given term, that needs to stick with that term. So I could say, oh, this is going to be the same thing as like 3x plus that 2x, and I'll kind of keep that separate. And then I've got 5 minus 3, and I'll keep those separate. And this is sort of our internal process. You don't have to write this step down. But, 3x plus 2x, I've already said it, is going to be 5x. And then 5 minus 3 is going to be a 2, and it's a positive 2. So, because I've got two different types of things, these are going to have to stay separate. We've got an expression with two different things here. I've got x terms and I have constants. So a term without a variable is just a constant. Let's do this again. Let's say we've got something like, let's say I've got something along the lines of 5m plus 8, and I'll do minus an m, and then minus a 6. Now, I threw a couple little curveballs in here, because there isn't here I don't have a coefficient in front of this m term right here. So again, I can think of this as 5m minus m. And if I were just saying this in English, it would be like saying, I'm taking 5 boxes marked M, and I'm taking away a box marked M. Even though it doesn't explicitly say it, we're going to think of, if we don't have a coefficient here, we can think of this as having a coefficient of 1. So now when I do this subtraction, I can say, oh, this is the same thing as, and I'm doing my little thought bubble over here, 5m minus 1m. And then plus, I've got 8 minus 6. 5m minus 1m. 5 minus 1 is just going to be 4m. 8 minus 6 is going to be 2. So there's our answer here. Now this is our first type of, and by far the easiest type of, simplifying an expression. The next thing that we have to do when we simplify expressions is we need to be able to clear parentheses. So here, we're going to just say, to clear parentheses, we're going to, I can spell, parentheses, we're going to distribute. Which is, of course, one of our properties of multiplication. So say I've got something along the lines of 5, and I'll multiply this by, say, 2x minus 8. And when I do this, essentially what we're doing is I'm is I am multiplying everything inside this set of parentheses by 5. 5 times 2x is going to be, 5 times 2 is going to be 10x. 5 times that minus 8 is going to be 40, and it's going to be a minus 40, because positive times negative is negative. And we'd be done with that piece right there. So to clear a set of parentheses, we're going to distribute. We're going to distribute a multiplication. Whenever I don't have a symbol in between two terms, that essentially means we're multiplying. This is 5 times this 2x minus 8. Let's do it again. Only this time I'm going to add another little twist. Let's say I've got something like, I'm going to do something interesting. Let's say I've got 7, only I'm going to subtract 3 times 2y plus 1. Now, when I distribute this here, this is going to be 7 minus, I'm thinking when I distribute this, this is essentially a negative 3 that I'm multiplying through. Negative 3 times 2y is going to be negative 6y. Negative 3 times 1 is going to be negative 3, or just a minus 3 here. Well, now I've got like terms that I can add again. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. It looks like I've just got this minus 6y. That's my only variable left. So I've got minus 6y. And then 7 minus 3 is going to be a 4. And we'd be done right here. So these are some of the basics of simplifying some expressions. There is one other set of skills that we want to talk about whenever we're talking about expressions, and that is evaluating an expression. Now, notice that in all of these expressions, we don't have any equal signs. An expression is just a statement. It doesn't have to equal anything. We can't, in any of these, I don't know what the value of x is, or y, or m. I'm not given any value of our various variables. But if we're evaluating an expression, what's going to happen is we're going to be given the value of one of our variables. And you might, in fact, have more than one. Say we've got an expression say we've got an expression like 3x minus 1. And I ask you to evaluate for x equals 2. What we're going to do is we're going to take a look at our original expression, and we're going to substitute the value into our expression. So that's what we're doing when we're asked to evaluate. I've got 3x minus 1, but I'm told that x is equal to 2. So this is going to be 3, and everywhere there's an x, I'm now going to substitute this value of 2. And our regular order of operations takes over. So I'm going to multiply before we do anything else. Looks like 3 times 2 is going to be 6 minus 1, and we're going to get to subtract last. 6 minus 1 is going to be 5. And we can, now this is a very simple expression. We can do this with all sorts of of equations here, or sorry, not equations, expressions. Let's say I've got something like y squared minus 6y plus 9. And I ask us to evaluate this for y is equal to -4. Well, this is going to be a little tricky. Everywhere there's a y, we're substituting in this -4. Now, when you substitute in, notice that up here I used a set of parentheses. Remember, whenever you're evaluating, put this substituted value inside a set of parentheses. That's going to help keep your signs straight. Because if I just put a -4 squared, that's going to be a little bit different than if I had a -4 inside a set of parentheses squared. -4 times -4 is a positive 16. Now in this next expression, I've got -6 times -4. That's going to be a positive 24. And last, I've got my 9, just kind of hanging out here. 16 plus 24, that's going to be 40. So might as well put that intermediate step there, 40 plus 9. You don't have to if you don't want to. 40 plus 9 is going to be 49. So there's our answer. Alrighty, that's all I've got for right now. If you have any questions, let me know.